Here is where it gets interesting. The reason you sacrifice your future self for your present self is not random. Economists and psychologists call it present bias, and it works like this. When we choose between a reward now and a larger reward later, we systematically choose the smaller reward if it is immediately available, because the brain applies a discount rate to the future. Every day something is delayed, its perceived value shrinks. $100 today feels more real than $120 in a week. Rest tonight feels more valuable than the fitness you will build over the next year. The future is always discounted, and the self that lives there is discounted along with it. Walter Mischel's Marshmallow experiments at Stanford in the 1960s showed something similar. Children who could wait in exchange for 2 marshmallows later showed better outcomes across multiple life areas decades later. But those studies revealed something beyond willpower. The ability to make the future feel vivid and present, to close the psychological distance between now and later, was the core skill. The children who waited did not have more discipline. They had more imagination. They made the future feel close enough to matter right now. This is what most people miss entirely. Your future self does not feel distant because it is far away. It feels distant because your brain has never learned to make it feel close. The default mode of the human mind shrinks the future into abstraction. Goals become vague. Consequences feel theoretical. The version of you that will exist in 5 years feels like a character from a story rather than a person you are becoming right now. And once the future shrinks into abstraction, every present pleasure expands to fill the space left behind. There's a version of you that wakes up early, finishes what it starts, saves money, exercises, reads, and never wastes a single hour. You know exactly who I'm talking about. You've imagined that person so many times it almost feels real. And yet, when the alarm goes off, when the moment arrives, when the choice is right in front of you, something happens. You choose the easier thing, the faster thing, the thing that feels good right now. And the disciplined version of you gets pushed to tomorrow. Again, this is not a story about laziness. It is not about lack of willpower. It is a story about something much stranger. Your brain literally does not recognize your future self as you. Researchers at Stanford connected participants to brain scanners and showed them images of their present selves. The areas that light up when we think about ourselves fired strongly and clearly. Then researchers showed those same participants images of their future selves, a version of themselves 10 years ahead. The regions that had just activated for self-recognition went quiet. Instead, the regions that lit up were the same ones used to process strangers. Distant people, people we do not know, do not trust, and feel no obligation to protect. When your brain imagines the future version of you, it is not thinking about you at all. It is thinking about someone else entirely. This discovery, studied extensively by Hershfield at UCLA, has a name. It is called the future self discontinuity, and it explains, with more precision than any theory of laziness ever could, why you keep breaking promises to yourself. You are not failing yourself. Not really. You are failing a stranger. And your brain does not feel guilty about that. Now hold on, because what I found in the research that follows changes the way you will read every decision you make for the rest of your life. You probably noticed this. You set the alarm for 6 in the morning. The night before, it feels completely reasonable. But when the alarm goes off, that imagined future self is nowhere in the room. There is only the weight of the blanket and the warmth of the bed. The future self, who is going to benefit from the early morning, cannot advocate for herself. She is still abstract. She is still a stranger. And the present self, which is very much awake and uncomfortable, wins every single time. Researchers call this the empathy gap. The gap between how we feel right now and how we expect to feel in the future is not just cognitive. It is emotional. You can know, intellectually, that you will regret skipping the gym. But knowing something and feeling it are processed by entirely different systems in the brain. The emotional weight of the present always outpaces the intellectual prediction of the future. Not sometimes, almost always. This asymmetry is not a character flaw. It is a feature of human cognition that no amount of motivation alone can override. Now here is what changes everything. The most effective intervention researchers have found to reduce present bias is not motivation or discipline. It is something far simpler and more counterintuitive. It is making the future self feel like you. Hershfield and his colleagues at UCLA showed participants aged images of themselves in the future. Not celebrities, not strangers. Their own faces, older and more real. Participants who saw their future selves allocated significantly more money to retirement savings. They made decisions that protected someone they could now recognize. The future self was no longer a stranger. The future self was someone they knew. And that recognition alone changed everything about how they chose. Other research extended this. When people wrote detailed letters to their future selves and then read replies supposedly written back from that future self, their long-term decision-making improved measurably. The act of giving the future self a voice, a face, a point of view reduced the psychological distance that present bias depends on. The brain does not procrastinate on behalf of strangers unless you let it believe your future self is one. Let that land for a moment. Every time you skip the workout, you are protecting your present comfort at the expense of someone your brain has quietly filed as someone else. Every time you scroll past the work you meant to do, spend what you meant to save, or eat what you said you wouldn't, you're not failing because you are weak. You are failing because a fundamental misclassification has taken place. Your future self has been filed under other people. And now you know. The question is not whether you want a better life. The question is whether the person who will live that life feels real enough to you right now to make today's discomfort worth enduring. Research by Princeton psychologist Emily Pronin shows this distance can be closed. Visualizing the future in sensory detail rather than abstract outcomes. Writing from the perspective of your future self. Treating them as a real person with real preferences. Creating what researchers call pre-commitment devices. Small decisions made in advance that remove the choice in the moment when present bias hits hardest. The people who seem most disciplined have not found more willpower. They have built more bridges to the future. They have made tomorrow feel inhabited rather than imaginary. Your goals are not waiting for you somewhere in the future. They are built right now, day by day, by a version of you that has decided the future self is worth protecting. The alarm you set tonight is not a willpower test. It is an act of loyalty to someone who cannot be in the room to speak for themselves. Your future self is counting on you to remember they exist. If this changed how you see your own choices, subscribe. Every week on this channel, we go deeper into the hidden mechanisms shaping everything you think, feel, and decide. The next video continues exactly where this one ends.